While discussing the town planning of Harappan civilization, we will talk about two aspects here. What are the features of the town planning and how these features made Harappan civilization unique. So during this time period, all the features related to town planning, related to other aspect of Harappan civilization was clearly visible in the full-fledged manner. That is why we take this particular. The fortification walls are different for citadel and for the lower town. So, hello everyone. In today's class, I'm going to talk about Harappan civilization with all of you. It's a very important topic for our examination, as well as it's very important for our national identity. So, when we talk about Harappan civilization, one of the very important things to remember is that when it was discovered, and when the discovery of Harappan civilization was officially announced in 1924, it changed the way we were looking at our own history. It changed the way West was perceiving India's history. Because when we look at Europe, when we look at Central Asia, they were boasting about having ancient civilizations, and we did not know about this very fascinating, very mesmerizing aspect of our own culture. So that is why Harappan civilization is very much important for our national identity, for our national pride, as well as for our history. In today's class, we are going to look at a few aspects of Harappan civilization. It's a very vast topic, so we cannot cover each and everything here. What we are going to do, we are going to talk about some of the important features of Harappan civilization. What features are we going to discuss? So, the very important feature of Harappan civilization is its town planning. So, this is something that we'll look at. While discussing the town planning of Harappan civilization, we'll talk about two aspects here. What are the features of the town planning and how these features made Harappan civilization unique in comparison to its contemporaries? That is one thing that we'll be discussing. Second aspect, how the town planning of Harappan civilization serves as an inspiration for us in present day as well. So those are the two things that we are going to discuss here. After that, I'll look at some of the Harappan traditions, and we'll try to understand how some of these traditions are still very much present in our contemporary Indian culture. So that is another aspect that we'll be looking at, and we'll be talking about these 2 points very thoroughly. When we talk about town planning, that is also about the architecture of Harappan civilization. So let us start our discussion based on these two areas. When we say Harappan civilization, why are we calling it Harappan civilization? There are two other names which you will come across. One name is Indus Valley Civilization, and the second name is Ghaggar civilization. So when we are saying Indus Valley Civilization, it is based on the sites which are falling along the river Indus. Earlier it was called Indus Valley Civilization. So the reason was that most of the sites were falling in the Indus Valley. Now, over time, when more and more excavations happened, we found that sites are not limited to the Indus Valley. Now, there were scholars who started calling it Ghaggar civilization. Now, the same problem persists here as well. If we are calling it Indus Valley civilization, many of the sites are left behind. When we are calling it Ghaggar civilization, the same problems occurs here as well. So that is why It's more appropriate to use the term Harappan civilization. Why? Because in archaeology, we have a convention to name a particular culture or civilization after the name of the site that was first discovered. So, Harappa was the first site to be discovered. That is why we are naming the civilization as Harappan civilization. What is the timeline of this civilization? See, there is a very vast timeline here. When we talk about the development of a particular civilization, it will take some time to exhibit the important features related to that civilization. There will be a time of development, there will be a time of decline. So, there is a particular phase 2600 BCE to 1900 BCE, which is called the period of mature Harappa. So during this time period, all the features related to town planning, related to other aspect of Harappan civilization was clearly visible in the full-fledged manner. That is why we take this particular timeline 2600 BCE to 1900 BCE. This is the timeline. Now, what are the evidences upon which we rely to understand the history of Harappan civilization? So, it falls under the category of proto-history. When we are talking about sources, even when we have some of the written evidence available in form of the inscriptions, we are not able to decipher the script of Harappan civilization. So we do have inscriptions, but we are not able to decipher the script. That is why we are not able to use the written evidence to understand the history of Harappan civilization. So, proto-history is a time period where written evidence is available, but we are not able to study it. That is what is happening with Harappan civilization. So, we are largely relying upon archaeological and architectural evidences. And what do we get to see when we are looking at the archaeological evidences is magnificent, fully planned towns. That is going to be our first aspect of discussion, town planning. So let's talk about the Harappan town planning. When we are looking at a particular Harappan city, we see a kind of uniformity. So there is uniformity in town planning. That is one thing that you will remember. What kind of uniformity are we looking at? So we find that cities are divided generally, with a few exceptions, generally they are divided in two parts. So this part is smaller and it is situated on a slightly higher platform, and this is called citadel, situated on a higher platform. Why is it situated on a platform? So there is this idea when we are looking at particular structures being situated on a platform, it is said that it either denotes power or it provides some kind of safety from any natural calamities. For example, if there are floods occurring, if there is some kind of disease which is spreading, this kind of higher platform can secure people to an extent. So they probably made this platform to provide them safety in occurrence of a natural calamity. The second thing that it also denotes the idea of power. So we will keep these two things in mind. Now, when we are talking about this citadel, and the lower town, this is called the lower town. So it is not situated on a higher platform. Both citadel and the lower city, they are fortified. So fortification walls are there. This is very important to remember when we are talking about the fortification. The fortification walls are different for citadel and for the lower town, but both the areas are fortified. That is something that we should remember. So when we are looking at Harappan cities, generally they are divided in two parts. One part is citadel and the other part is lower town. Citadel is situated on a higher platform, probably to provide security from natural calamities or to denote the political power. Both the citadel and lower town, they are fortified but with different fortification walls. That is one thing that you will remember. Now, when we are entering this city, then what do we see? So let us enter the city and see what we are looking here. See, you can remember the city of Dholavira before that as an exception to this system. When we are looking at the city of Dholavira, it is divided in three parts. One part, citadel, situated on a higher platform. Second part is the middle town. And third part is the lower town. Now, all of this is fortified but with a single fortification wall. And there are inner walls separating different parts of the city. But this is the case of Dholavira. So generally we have this kind of division. In some cases, we have certain exceptional cases like Dholavira. So this is something that you should remember. Now let us enter the inside premises of the city and see how they are built. So when we enter the Harappan city, we see the roads. Now the interesting thing about these roads are that they ran parallel to each other. So roads are also carefully constructed. They are running parallel to each other, one thing. Second, they are cutting each other at 90-degree angle. So this is also a road. They are running parallel to each other, or this one is also running parallel to each other. Second thing, that they are cutting each other at 90-degree angle. This is the other thing to remember here. Now what is happening? This is not a road. This is not a road. Above this similar kind of situation will happen. So this is preparing a grid-like pattern. Here is a road, here is a road, and again parallel there is a road. This is the space in which they are going to build their houses. So when we are looking at their roads, we have looked at the division of the city. When we are looking at the roads, they are running parallel to each other. They are cutting each other at 90-degree, making a grid-like pattern. And under this particular grid system, their houses are built. When we are looking at their roads, one thing which you should keep in mind, they were so wide that two bullock carts could have passed at the same time. Now see, think about it. They have very carefully planned it. If you look at our present day cities, you will find that the problem of traffic is very common. So when cities are unplanned, they are unstructured, these kind of problems can become a daily harrowing reality. When we are looking at Harappans, they have very carefully made the roads wide enough for two bullock carts to pass at the same time. So it can serve as an inspiration to us even today. First thing. Second thing, it is something which was making Harappan civilization very unique in the contemporary times as well. When we are looking at the contemporary civilizations like Egyptian civilization or Mesopotamian civilization, these people were not planning their cities in a very careful manner. There was haphazard development, as we say it. So when we look at Harappan town planning, it is making Harappan civilization unique in the contemporary world. Second thing, it is also serving as an inspiration for us in present times to make our cities more planned, to actually rule out the issues related with the present day urbanization. So we should keep it in mind in both the terms. Now, when we have looked at the roads, now let us look at the drainage pattern. What kind of drainage system was present in Harappan civilization? So when we are looking at their roads, what is something which is very interesting, that they have built the roads and then they have built drains alongside the roads. So they have built these main drains along the main road. So these kind of drains are present here. Now, what is very interesting about these drains, that they are built prior to the houses. They have built the roads and they have built the drains. This is the grid pattern in which houses are going to be built. This will be a road and this is going to be the grid. So now look at it. They have built their roads wide enough for 2 bullock carts to pass at the same time. Second, they have built the drains. So they have already made a drainage system prior to making the houses. Now these drains are covered with removable lids. So they have covered the drain with stones. Stone slabs are there. The interesting thing about these stone slabs is that they can be removed. What is important here? When we are looking at these removable stone slabs, we can understand that probably it was meant for cleaning. They have already kept this thing in mind, that the drain would require regular cleaning. So they have made these particular stone slabs removable. So when we are looking at Harappans, they are very much concerned about hygiene. This is one thing that they are keeping in mind. Related to this, you can talk about the point of sanitation, that they are very much focusing upon their sanitation. This is something which is of primary importance, visible in making the removable stone slabs. Coming to the houses, let's look at this part. So there are roads. This is the drain line. Now when they are making their houses, they made sure that every house has access to the main drain line. So this is how they'll make their houses. Now every house has access to the main drain line. What they are going to do? They'll make the toilet, they'll make the washroom and kitchen in a way that small drains can be connected to the larger drains. This is again something very unique, that every house is connected to the main drain. When we are looking at their drainage system, it is very carefully, very scientifically planned, that smaller drains of the houses are connected to the larger drains. The soakage pits in the toilets are also connected to the main soakage pit here in the main drain. So when we are looking at their houses, see, when we say that every house has a toilet, a washroom, a particular kitchen of their own, that means that Harappans are paying a lot of attention in providing basic amenities for every city dweller. Now this is also something which can serve as an inspiration to us. When we are looking at our present day cities, water logging is a very major problem, and this is something that draws our attention almost every rainy season, that we are looking at our cities flooded with water with hardly any way to take it out of the city. It takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of labor to make these cities clogging free. So when we are looking at this system, it is making Harappan civilization unique during those times. It is serving as an inspiration to us in present day as well. The third thing that we have talked about the houses, that providing things of basic amenities to everyone. We have to run a government program to make every village open defecation free, and here when you look at this kind of system, it is again an inspiration for us in present times, that we should look at the important feature of this civilization in a very unique manner. This is also something which made Harappan civilization unique in the contemporary world, that this is a civilization which spent their technology, which spent their wealth in providing basic amenities for all. So this is a very important aspect here. Apart from providing toilet, washroom and kitchen, they are making sure that every house has a courtyard. When we are looking at every house having a courtyard, they are making sure that they have access to light, they have access to air in every house. So they are very much concerned about making sure that air ventilation is there, that proper light is coming inside the house. Again, something which made Harappan civilization very unique, something which can serve as an inspiration to us even today. So courtyard is also one thing which is present in every house. Now when we are looking at their houses, and when we look at the entrance, it opens like this. So nobody can peep inside the house. When we look at this, we also understand that they gave a lot of importance to their privacy. That is also something which is very interesting about Harappans. So this is also something that you can remember. Their houses never opened on the main road, they always opened in the back alley. So this is part of Harappan town planning system, and there is a uniformity when we are looking at this in each of the towns. So I hope this much is clear. Now moving forward, what else is there? When we are looking at Harappans, another very basic need is water. So how are they managing their water? Now they are making sure that water is available inside the premises of the city. So they are making wells. These wells are private as well as public. So there are certain houses which had wells of their own, but there are many houses which do not have a private well. So their governing body is making sure that water is available for everyone, and that is why they have also made public wells. So both kind of wells are there. See, we also should understand that when we are looking at Harappan cities, they are providing basic amenities for all. It does not mean that the society was equal. Every house is going to have a toilet, washroom, kitchen, courtyard of their own. But apart from that, the number of rooms can vary. So that is dependent upon one's personal economic capacity. So the number of rooms can differ. There are certain houses which have remains of staircases. So if there is a staircase, that means the house was multi-storied. We do not know how many stories were there because we are getting the foundation. But if there is a staircase, that means they were meant to go upwards. So that means there are certain houses which have multi-stories. There are certain houses which are having a single story. So the number of rooms and the number of stories can differ. That also points us towards the socio-economic hierarchy that must have existed in Harappan civilization. Second thing, when we are looking at the presence of private and public wells inside the city, we do understand that they are making sure that water is available inside the city premises. On the other hand, we also understand the socio-economic hierarchy that was prevalent in Harappan civilization. Why? Because certain houses could afford their private wells while others couldn't. So both the things should be kept in mind. Now, when we are looking at their water management system, again, something which is very unique in the contemporary times, when we look at the contemporary civilizations, they were largely dependent upon river water. On the other hand, Harappans were making sure that water is available inside the city premises. For present society also, their unique water management system can serve as an inspiration. So this is one thing. Now let us talk about the areas where the level of groundwater was very low. What are they doing there? So there they are creating artificial reservoirs. For example, there is a city in present day Gujarat named Dholavira. So in the city of Dholavira, we find artificial water reservoir. So they are making sure that water is stored when there are rains, it is harvested. So proper water harvesting system is also present in a city like Dholavira. So when we talk about the water management system, wells and second water reservoirs, both the things we can remember. So this is also something which is very interesting and very unique about Harappan civilization. Now there are other kinds of structures as well. These are the things which are common. Now there are other kind of structures. For example, we find dockyard. What is a dockyard? Dockyard is a place where ships are generally repaired. So in Harappan civilization, there are two sites where we find the presence of a dockyard, both in present day Gujarat. One is Lothal and second is Dholavira. The dockyard of Lothal is the oldest dockyard known in the world. See, when you are looking at these kind of unique details, they can be very important from prelims perspective. The city of Dholavira is an exception in many aspects. So that is something that you can remember. When we are talking about the city of Lothal, it is unique because it has the world's oldest dockyard. So that is again another kind of structure that we are finding in Harappan cities of Lothal and Dholavira. Apart from the dockyard, we also have a great bath. We'll look at the picture in a while. So there is a great bath where people were supposed to take probably the ritualistic bath. Now this is again a very unique structure which is present in the city of Mohenjo-daro, now in Pakistan. So Mohenjo-daro is a city where we find the presence of a great bath. We'll look at the picture in a while. We also find a pillared assembly hall here in the city of Mohenjo-daro. Now, these are some of the unique structures like the Great Bath or the dockyard or the pillared hall. We find granaries where these people used to store their grains. That is also one structure which is found in major Harappan cities. So for example, in the city of Rakhigadi or Dholavira, Harappa, Mohenjo-daro, we find presence of granaries where they used to store the grain. These structures like Great Bath, Pillared Hall or granaries, they are situated in the citadel. So this is something that you should remember when we are talking about Harappan architecture or when we are talking about the town planning of Harappan civilization. Based on this, can we get to know a bit about the socio-economic hierarchy or the political system present in Harappan civilization? Because see, we are not going into all the nitty-gritties of the society right now or the polity right now because we cannot cover it in a very short span of time, but we are briefly touching upon the political and social hierarchies present there. So just based on the things that we have discussed right now, I am going to briefly touch upon the political and social aspect of Harappan civilization. When we are talking about the social aspect of Harappan civilization, it is a very misconstrued fact that Harappan society was equal. No, the society was not equal. What is unique here is that things of basic amenities were provided to people who were city dwellers. See, why are we talking about socio-economic hierarchies present there in Harappan civilization? What is the basis of that? If you look at the Harappan society, let us take the evidences of one. We can take the burial, and second, we can take the example of their town, dwelling places where people were living. When we are talking about their towns, they are divided. So there is a division. What kind of division? There is a citadel and there is a lower town. Citadel itself is located on a higher platform. Does that not show us a kind of hierarchy? Even though both of them are fortified, but citadel is located on a slightly higher platform. So that is telling us about the hierarchy which was present there. Second, let us look at the number of rooms. When we are looking at Harappan houses, all the houses are having a toilet, a washroom, a kitchen, and a courtyard of their own. But when we are looking at the number of rooms, they differ. So we can say that Harappans were providing everyone the things of basic amenities. But does that mean equality? Does that mean socio-economic hierarchies were absent? No, because we see that certain houses are having one room apart from the other structures. Certain houses are having multiple rooms. So the number of rooms differ. That is indicating towards the socio-economic hierarchies present in the society. The number of stories, because in some of the houses we find staircases and in some of the houses we don't find staircases. So there are certain houses which are single story, there are certain houses which are multi-storied. So that is also telling us about the socio-economic hierarchy present in Harappan society. Another example that we can give is by talking about the wells. There are certain houses which are having their own private wells. There are certain houses which do not have the private wells. So the unique thing is in providing everyone water supply inside the city premises. The difference comes in certain houses owning a private well and certain houses being dependent upon the public wells. So when we are talking about the towns, these are the four aspects that we can discuss that indicates towards the socio-economic hierarchy. Now let us look at the burials. When we are talking about Harappan burials, they are not costly. This is a very unique thing about them. When we look at Egyptian civilization, think about the pyramids of Egypt, and you will get to understand how their burials were very, very costly. They were spending huge wealth on making those royal burials known as pyramids. When we are talking about Harappans, in comparison to those costly royal burials, their burials would seem very simple. But even when the burials are not costly, they are burying certain things with the dead. Now, when we look at those items they are burying with the dead, some of the burials are having more items or a bit of expensive items in comparison to the others. So when we are looking at the things being buried with the dead, that also tells us about the socio-economic hierarchy that was present in Harappan civilization. So on the basis of basic amenities being provided to all, we cannot say that Harappan civilization did not have socio-economic hierarchies. It did have socio-economic hierarchies. That is very much visible in the kind of evidence that we are getting from Harappan cities. So that is one aspect that you can remember. When we are looking at Harappan society, we hardly find war weapons. We find the tools that can be used in their daily lives. For example, when we see the difference, you can find a knife, but you will not see the sword. So when we are looking at Harappan civilization, these people seem to be very uniquely peaceful people, depended upon long distance trade with the contemporary civilization. So that is another aspect that we can keep in mind. Coming to the next aspect that we are looking at here, that they were very much focused upon sanitation. We have talked about the drainage pattern, how their main drains are covered with removable slabs so that regular cleaning can happen. When we are looking at their houses, smaller drains of the houses are connected to the larger main drains which were laid along with the main road. So these people were very much focused upon sanitation. All these things made them a very unique civilization in the contemporary world. So if we have to talk about the unique features of Harappan civilization, if we have to talk about what made them so special, what made them so mesmerizing in the contemporary world, you can talk about all these things that they were having. Now, let us come to the other aspect. Again, we'll briefly talk about the political system which was present there. What kind of political system was there? People have been debating about it. Historians have had a lot of debates over the political system which was present in Harappan civilization. See, when we are looking at these kind of things, when we are looking at such careful planning of cities, when we are looking at uniformity in city planning, we can be sure that there was a particular governance system which existed. Nobody can deny that, because if there is a uniformity, if there is a careful planning, that means there is a governing body which was planning all of this. Where is the debate? The debate is in the nature. Whether it was a monarchical setup, whether religious people were more prominent here, whether it was being done by the traders, that is the debate. So when we are talking about the political system and what was the nature of it, one argument is that it was a monarchy. So when we are talking about presence of a monarchy, what is the evidence that has been cited? One argument is the assembly hall that we find from Mohenjo-daro. So for and against. So if we are talking about the argument in the favor, the assembly hall found from the city of Mohenjo-daro has been cited as an evidence for monarchical setup. And see, many of these debates are arising because when the discovery of Harappan civilization was announced, there were people who were saying that Harappan civilization has developed due to the spread of ideas from Mesopotamia and Egypt, which is not true. When we are talking about the origin of Harappan civilization, there is a lot of debate over this. When we talk about the decline, again, there is a lot of debate over this, which is embedded in political controversies as well. So when we are talking about, see, when British are coming here, when Europeans are looking at Asian societies, they always, most of the times, they had a lot of prejudice. So they said, for example, there is this guy named Ferguson who said that India is a country of philosophers and snake charmers. They don't know how to rule. So back then, we did not know about Mauryan Empire. We had forgotten our own history, unfortunately. So we did not know about the extent of Mauryan Empire. We had forgotten that we have a manuscript called Arthashastra, and in 1905, the manuscript of Arthashastra was discovered by a person called Shama Shastri, and it was discovered accidentally. Now, this is going to completely shatter the myth that Europeans are in a way propagating that India did not know how to rule, because when we are looking at text like Arthashastra, it is talking about the art of statecraft in a lot of detail. Now what they'll start saying, that you people did not know how to make statues which are life size and which are freestanding. So in Mauryan Empire, in 1917, we discovered the statue of Didarganj Yakshi, again accidentally, which is a life-size statue and also freestanding. So it shattered the argument that Indians have learnt the art of freestanding life-size statue making from Kushanas. Kushanas also introduced this kind of art, but we also had our own tradition of making freestanding life-size statues. Now, the last argument was that India did not have an ancient civilization. With the official announcement of discovery of Harappan civilization in 1924, the myth was completely shattered. And this is the time when there will be a group of scholars who will start arguing that India did not develop a unique civilization on its own. It was the result of spread of ideas from Mesopotamia, from Egypt. And that is why there are a lot of debates, because when we talk about Mesopotamia, there the priestly class was important when it came to rule. When we talk about Egypt, monarchy was important there in the context of rule. So they are going to give a lot of arguments supporting that Harappan civilization was governed by a monarchical setup or by a priestly setup. But when we look at our own history, we get to know that Harappan civilization was a result of continuous process of evolution which happened in India. It was not a result of spread of ideas from the West. It was a unique civilization which developed out of the evolutionary processes in Indian subcontinent itself. So that is something which is very important to understand, and that is why there is a lot of debate. So for supporting the argument, the evidence of a pillared assembly hall has been cited. Now there is a statue which we look at. The statue has been called of a king. So there is a particular sculpture, particular statue, and they are saying that it is of a king again found from Mesopotamia. Now, when we are talking about the argument which is against this, in Harappan civilization, we don't find palaces. So, if it was governed by a monarchical setup, we should have found the evidence of a palace, because that is something which is very common in Mesopotamia as well. And when we are talking about the Egyptian civilization, we find a lot of palaces. Here in Harappan civilization, we don't find palaces. So, that shatters the argument. Second, when we are talking about war weapons, we don't find war weapons. Harappans were a uniquely peaceful society, as cited by the evidence that is available. So, the argument for a monarchical setup can be questioned on this basis. We don't find royal burials. So, if we were inspired from Egyptian civilization, we should have made pyramids. We didn't. We are not making costly burials at all when we compare it to the contemporary civilization. So, we are spending our resources, we are using our technology in providing basic amenities to all, not in building huge temples, not in building huge palaces, not in making costly royal burials. So, that is something which is very important here to remember. Now, when we are talking about the priestly class, so the group of scholars which will say that the origin of Harappan civilization was a result of spread of ideas from Mesopotamia, they are going to favor the argument of Harappans being governed by the group of priestly classes. What will be the argument in the favor of this? The Great Bath. So there is a great bath which is present in the city of Mohenjo-daro. So they'll say that in India there is this culture of ritualistic bath, and this bath is also for ritualistic purposes, and that tells us that Harappans were governed by a group of priestly people. That is one argument that is given. The second argument, the very same statue they are saying is of a priest. And on the basis of this, they are saying that Harappans were governed by a group of priestly classes. Now, if we are looking at this argument, in Mesopotamia, we find ziggurats. So, the way we are finding pyramids, royal burials in Egypt, in Mesopotamia, we find large ziggurats. Ziggurats are temples. So, we call temples ziggurats there. When we are looking at Harappan civilization, we don't find temples. So, when we don't find temples at all, how can we say that it was a result of ideas from Mesopotamian civilization and a group of priestly people were governing it? That argument also does not hold value. So, what has been said instead, that probably it was governed by a group of traders. Now, why this argument is being given? Because Harappans are a very uniquely peaceful people, and the civilization was based on long distance trade. That is the reason why it has been said. And this is also a probability. When we are talking about the probability of monarchy, of priestly classes, it can be shattered. But here, in the favor of the governing body being ruled by a group of traders, we do have arguments in the favor. So that can be a possibility. We cannot be very sure even about this possibility. So for that, if we are able to decipher the written evidence someday, then we'll be able to probably know for sure whether it was governed by traders or there was another system altogether which we are not able to fathom about. So this is something that can be about the political debate related to Harappan civilization. I'll not go into the details of economy or other aspects of society or the details of sites right now, because we don't have that much of time in this class. I'll focus more upon the traditions that are part of Harappan civilization. So let us look at the traditions, and for that we will look at the archaeological evidences from Harappan civilization, and we'll try to understand what kind of tradition was there. So see, this is a photo from the site of Kalibangan, and when we are looking at the site, this particular picture, we are looking at the oldest, the first plowed field from the proto-historic world. And here we find that two crops were sown together. So when we are looking at the tradition in agriculture, what we can get to know, we are talking first factually, we are talking about the first plowed field from the proto-historic world being present in Kalibangan, present-day Rajasthan we are talking about here. So that is one thing that you can understand. When we say plowed field, that means these people were using plows. That is one tradition in agriculture that we can understand. Second, I said that two crops were sown together. So in if you look at a medieval text of Abul Fazl, he is saying that in India there is a tradition of do fasla kheti. That means these people are sowing two crops together. Even in present times we find this tradition to be continued in India. So we sow multiple crops together, and that is another aspect that we can remember. See, when we are looking at traditions in India, one thing that you should understand about our culture is a result of multiple assimilative processes. So there are certain things which are a continuation from our ancient or medieval cultures. There are certain things which have changed as well. So when we define Indian culture, it is a result of multiple processes of assimilations, and we also see change with continuity. So when we are looking at this tradition, this is an example of a very beautiful continuity that has existed even today. Let us look at this picture. This is a picture of the granaries that we have found. So this is the structure of stone that we see, and above this probably other structures were made of wood. If you look at the building material in ancient India, we mostly used bricks. So in Harappan civilization they are using burnt bricks which have this particular dimension 2 to 4 to 2 to 1. So when we are looking at length, breadth and height, so this is again something very unique. These people are using burnt bricks, or we use stone or wood. So wood would not survive that long, but stone would. So the stone structures have survived. This is the granary. Look at the cities. When we are looking at these cities, think about it. We are talking about 2600 BC, almost 5000 years old. And if you look at the structure today, it has survived so beautifully. It tells you about the engineering techniques that were available at that point of time. We will not be able to know how they developed it, but they did have it. That is something that we can know for sure. So this is the kind of structure that has existed even today after more than 5000 years. This is the great bath that we were talking about. So there is a staircase here, and on this side also there is a staircase. And if you go above, there are changing rooms where people probably changed their clothes after taking the bath. And there is a well also on this side for drawing the water in, and they have a very proper mechanism of drawing the water in, and they have also made drains here to draw the water out. And they have used a particular kind of bitumen to make this, so that the whole structure is waterproof. And it's a very beautiful example of the developed technology of Harappan people. So it is said by certain scholars that it was probably meant for ritualistic bath. So this is from the city of Mohenjo-daro. Let us look at this side. So, if we talk about the continuity in India, in Hinduism, you will see the tradition of making kund. So, that is water body inside the temple premises, meant for ritualistic baths. So, that is one continuity in religious terms that you can trace. Coming to these two seals. So from Harappan civilization, we find a lot of seals, we find a lot of sealings. This is Pashupati seal, which is found from the city of Mohenjo-daro. Again, the city of Mohenjo-daro is very interesting in this context. We find a lot of evidences from there. So when we are looking at this particular seal, there is a deity who is sitting in the yogic position, wearing a horn throne. So when we are looking at this particular person, he is sitting in a yogic position. That means, if you look at the tradition, that means the idea of yoga or the practice of yoga was probably present back then as well. And this deity is known as Proto Shiva, Pashupati or Proto Shiva. Why Pashupati? Because owner of various animals. So there are a lot of animals which have been depicted here. So buffalo, rhinoceros, elephant, tiger. Here you can see deer. So probably people were worshipping Proto Shiva, and at the same time they were also worshipping animals who are depicted here. So when you study the religious life of Harappan people, you study that these people were worshipping Proto Shiva, these people were worshippers of animals, of trees, of mother goddess. This is the evidence that we take into account. So this is a very interesting seal, and if you want to talk about the continuity in present times, worship of Shiva in Hindu religion, worship of various animals in various cultures existing throughout India. So that is also one of the continuities that is still present. Practice of yoga, that is also present. So these are the kind of continuity. So you can understand about the Harappan religious life here. You can also talk about the continuing tradition based on all this information. This is the inscription that is present here. These are the kind of inscriptions. So Harappan inscriptions were pictographic. That means there are pictures which are denoting their words. Coming here, the second seal, you can see that this kind of thorn, this particular tree is also wearing, and it is a peepal tree. So when we talk about worship of trees by Harappan people, this is the kind of evidence that we are looking at. Again, worship of trees is very common in present day India even today. So continuing traditions you can see here as well. Harappan religious life plus continuing tradition in the present. This is the bronze image, dancing girl from Harappan civilization. So when we are looking at this dancing girl, it is made of bronze. So there is this lost wax technique which was used to make bronze sculptures. So what we do, we make a mold of wax and then we pour the bronze in, and when the bronze is settled, then we take the wax out. And that is a method which was used for making bronze sculptures in India throughout. And even today, if you look at the continuity, Dokra metal craft is made in the very similar way. So now when we are looking at this dancing girl, what you can understand that they were making bronze statues. It tells us about their craft, that they were making statues of bronze. They are making statues of terracotta. They are making statues of stone. They are making statues of bronze as well. That is one thing that you can understand about the economy. When we talk about tradition of bronze statue making, continues even today. The example can be Dokra metal craft. Now look at her. They were making nude statues as well. Look at the kind of ornaments that she is wearing. Look at the way she has done her hair. She has made a bun. Again, when we talk about fashion, when we talk about jewelry, in that context also a continuity can be traced. So in India, if you look at women, they prefer to make buns even today. When you are looking at the jewelry, she is wearing a lot of bangle. She is wearing here a necklace. If you look at women in rural Rajasthan today, even today you will find that they are wearing these kind of bangles up till there, up till here in their hands. Again, a continuing tradition that you can talk about. So, be it in the context of craft production, be it in the context of fashion sense, be it in the context of jewelry, you will find a continuing tradition even today. So that is one thing that you can understand. Coming to the next statue, this was the statue that we were talking about when we were talking about the one particular statue being interpreted as a king or as a priest as well. So this is the very statue again found from Mohenjo-daro. So when we are looking at this, we can understand about the craft tradition that they were making stone sculptures, continuing even today. That is one thing that you can understand. Second thing, when you look at the person is having a beard. So we can talk about this fact that in their lifestyle, men were probably keeping beard. This particular statue is telling us about it. Now, when you look at the dress, the person is wearing a particular dress of floral pattern. If you look at Indian cloth tradition, apart from various other traditions, making floral pattern has also been very common. This is something which is depicted here. Even if we don't find the clothes existing from that time, we do find certain cloth remains, but even if we don't have it, we can talk about the patterns that they were making on their clothes. So that is one clothing pattern that we can talk about. When we are looking at this particular hand or head, the person is probably wearing amulet. So when we are talking about amulets, we can say that these people probably believed in some kind of magic, a religious practice common even today. Wearing amulets, believing in some kind of magical totems, that is part of even contemporary times and present even today. So that is something that we can talk about while looking at this particular structure. Now, when we question the kind of arguments that have been given in the favor of monarchy or priestly classes, if you look at this particular sculpture, it is very much clear. How can you say that this is the statue of a king or this is the statue of a priest if it is not written there, if we are not able to study it? It is a very far-fetched assumption that is being made. So this is another craft that we have. This is another sculpture, stone sculpture that we find from Harappan civilization. Here, what is very interesting to look at, that they have made sockets. So socketed hand, they are making all kind of statues. They are making statues where hand or head cannot move. They are making statues where hand or head can move. If you remember the dolls that we used to play with when we were children, so all the kind of dolls were available. The one where you could have removed the hand, so it was socketed like this, and the one where you could not have removed the hand or the head. So when we are looking at their statues, they are having variety and they are making it in very different ways, be it in the kind of material that they are using or be it in the kind of statues that they are making. So it is another example of the craft tradition from Harappan people. This again shows you the variety. So this is probably made by the commoners, because here you will see that it is a terracotta figurine and they are making statues of women, many a times interpreted as mother goddess. They are making figurines of various animals, birds at times, and very beautiful sculptures of terracotta as well. So this is the kind of terracotta sculpture that we find. If you look at the terracotta figurines here, also you will find the similar kind of jewelry. They are putting the necklace, they are putting the bangles. So that is probably part of their jewelry tradition that must have existed back then. So this is another kind of example that we find from there. Look at the kind of jewelry that they are making. If you look at present day fashion, you will find especially young women wearing these kind of necklaces or bangles made of beads, made of terracottas, which is very much part of this society as well. So when we are talking about the jewelries, even in that we can see continuities today. So they are making all kinds of bangles, necklaces, hairpins, all these things were part of that jewelry tradition. This is the kind of pottery that they are making. So pottery making is also a part of their craft, their economic life, and they are making glossy and gleamy pottery of red color with designs of black colors. Those designs are geometrical, those designs are having fish scales. So all the kind of designs are available here. When we are looking at these potteries, they are very huge in size at times. So that also tells us that surplus production was probably happening. And to store those surplus grains, they were making such big potteries, or they were making many of the granaries so that they can store the surplus production. So that is part of their pottery tradition. This is a map of excavation. This is the kind of seals that we have seen. They have made a lot of seals. This is a burial from Harappan civilization. So you can see the skeleton here, and you can see the objects that were buried. So we have talked about Harappans not investing in costly burials. That is something that you can see here. Where do we find the social or economic hierarchy when we are looking at the things buried with the dead? In some of the burials, we find only one pottery. We don't find any jewelry. In some of the burials, we find a lot of pots. We also find some jewelries being buried with the dead. So that is the basis on which we say that Harappans did not have costly burials, and even in those non-costly or those simple burials, we do find evidences of socioeconomic hierarchy. This is another seal. This is the kind of toy that they are making. When you will study the difference between Harappans and Aryans, one difference will be on the basis of wheels that those people were using. So when we are looking at the wheels, these people they were using potter's wheel. And when we look at Aryans, these people were using spoked wheels. So if you look at their toys, you can see that they are making bullock carts. And in those bullock carts, the wheels are potter's wheel. They are also making these kind of carts. So this is toy. So we are not finding the bigger ones, but we are finding the toys. So when we look at the toys, we can also talk about the kind of transportation that they must be using. When we are looking at dockyards, so we can talk about presence of ships, or boats. When we are looking at these kind of toys, so what we get as toys is something which is popular in our daily lives. So when they are making toys of bullock carts, that means bullock carts must have been a popular form of transportation. These are the kind of pots that we get. This is the kind of games that they must be playing. It will remind you very much of the toys that we used to play with. So this is a kind of dice, these kind of geometry boxes we used to have as children. This is here again the dice. So you can look at their games as well, and here also you can trace the similarity. Some of the houses are having these kind of bricks which are designed. So from Kalibangan, we have also found some of the designed bricks, not common at other places, but in Kalibangan we do find these kind of designed bricks. So these are the kind of evidences that we get to know when we are looking at Harappan civilization. Look at this. It is so magnificent. This is the drain line. If you stand there, your height will be till here. This is the kind of drainage that these people are making, and it will tell you about the kind of technology that they have, about the kind of focus that they had on sanitation. This is again a toy bullock cart that we find. So this is the outside wall of the cities. And remember that we are looking at a structure more than 5,000 years old. This is from Daimabad. So Daimabad is very much known for bronze statue production. And when we are looking at this, again, this is also a cart being pulled by bullocks. But here, what is the difference? The earlier ones were of terracotta. This one is of bronze. So bronze production was happening at a large scale in the city of Daimabad, present day Maharashtra. So when you look at these things, you can understand the tradition of Harappan people. You can understand what kind of economic and religious cultural traditions have survived in present day India as well. So there is always a dialogue which is happening between the past and present that you can understand. So in today's class, we have tried to look at the town planning system of Harappans, how the town planning system of Harappans made them unique in their contemporary world, how it can serve as an inspiration to us even today in our present day urbanization. We looked at some aspects of their society, the political system that might have existed back then, and then we tried to trace the traditions of Harappan people in economic terms, in religious terms, and how it is continuing even today in some way or the other. So these were the things that we have discussed. I hope it has helped you out in giving you a picture of how Harappan people functioned. We'll keep continuing these kind of classes to give you a glimpse of our past in an interesting way. We'll stop the discussion here. Have a good day. Thank you.